Hello and welcome. Good morning, everybody. We appreciate you making some time to join us for our AI Agentic webinar this morning. We're here from Advanced Data. My name is Paul Hedgecock, and I'm the General Manager, and we're joined by Jason Shavy and Brian Shavy, who are the co-founders and then CTO and CTO respectively of Advanced Data. We're super grateful whether you're here in person or reviewing our recording. We're glad you made the time to join us this morning. And we're going to jump right in. We're going to have some information that we share. We're going to show a few demonstrations, and then we're going to leave time at the end to talk a little bit about any questions that people might have, and give you an opportunity to engage with us afterwards to come and give personalized instruction and offerings to each organization. So, having said that, let me go ahead and turn the time over to Jason, and we're going to get started with our presentation today.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Good morning, everyone. Glad to have this opportunity to talk about one of our favorite topics at Advanced Data, which is AI. And as we kind of have gone through this journey of AI in business, we've seen, one, it's moving very fast. And we see a lot of businesses that are struggling to say, how we want to do this, how do we do it? So hopefully, as we talk about some of the topics that we have today, which is AI agents and agentic AI, we'll be able to kind of shed some light on some of those questions and share a clear path forward. So I guess first, and maybe we do a show of hands that are either in the chat, you can post, but how many of you have used AI this week to perform some task for you? I think I could probably answer that question for most people. I think most people can say, yes, we're using AI. And I guess the real question is how many of you have AI working for you right now, like even while you're in this demo? And that's kind of a segue into our topic, which is agentic AI, which we'll help define and help see what it does. But in short, it's AI that doesn't need you to be prompting it along to perform a task that you give it. It can just work independently and do its thing. So we want to start with this slide that says, that talks about, and this is the big hurdle, because just recently, I think this last week, over with the recent Gallup poll that was done, 52% of US workers, so over the 50%, so over the halfway line, of workers are using AI. So the reality is in business that over half of your staff, let's bring it home now, half of your employees, half of the staff that you're working with are using AI, whether you have a policy or not around it, whether you have controls around it or not, it's being used. And so that's a good message for, hey, if you don't have an AI usage policy in your business or company, let's get one in place. But also, it's there, and people are adopting it. I think we saw, early on, people resisting adoption, and it's. I don't know, Brian, would you say that 50% was a number I wasn't expecting so far? At this point, I figured there would be more. Yeah,
I thought it was going to be lower. But I think that's just because in the public space there tends to be leaning towards negative, and in terms of the perception of AI, and there's a lot of debate about the future of AI because of data centers or whatnot. So there's a lot of negative around it, but the truth is there's a lot of positive too, and so we see that reflected in the numbers.
Yeah. The real headline here is the gap, the distance between the top AI adopters and the median business. It's widening. However, and that's just competitive advantage that's compounding every day for businesses that have adopted versus those who haven't. I guess I would just want to reassure everyone that if you haven't adopted AI like wholeheartedly in your business, we're still very early. I think there's still plenty of time, although the train's moving down the track, right? You need to make a decision in the business, say, hey, we're going to use it or not, and jump on board. So what's actually changing? So there's an adoption and a shift that's happening that we want to make sure that no one misses. And so let's go through this. So this shift at first, whereas AI was providing helpful responses, we were using it almost as a search engine replacement, saying, hey, instead of going to Google, I'm just going to go to my AI chat and getting information that way. We then used AI, and it kind of evolved into, well, let me use AI to help me create things, like help with drafting documents or emails or even content, like for marketing and things like that, reviewing things that normally took a specific and specialized skill set, like a legal document or HR or something, or along those lines. And now, as we go further down this road, the next step in this journey is autonomy. And this is where AI agents and agentic AI, if you ever hear that phrase, come to play. This is where AI can plan, act, and complete tasks autonomously without direct input or supervision. And so, yeah, so taking it from a chatbot to a useful tool that can make decisions and perform actions on your behalf. Yeah, so let's actually define them precisely, how the agent is getting included in everything. So here we have this formula of what is an AI agent. Okay, and you can kind of see these components here that have to be put together like a recipe almost in order to get a successful AI agent. So an agent is a combination of an AI model. So think ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. A goal that you have in mind. So think of some either business task or process or something that you want to accomplish. Context around that. So how you want it done, who you are, who the other party is, and the end results that you desire. Then the appropriate tools needed to accomplish those tasks. So let's say if you're doing, let's say, a marketing AI agent, you have a goal to create social media posts. The context is that it's for your customers and potential customers. Maybe the tools are your social media accounts. Maybe it's your blog. Maybe it's SEO accounts that you may have, Google Analytics, things like that. And then finally, this loop at the end. And so I think most of this is pretty straightforward. Maybe that last one, Brian, maybe you spend a little time on that loop and maybe what that is. So we have the models, the goal, the context, or the what you need to accomplish, the tools that you provide AI access to, which is important in selecting those tools, and we can talk more about that. And then this loop.
Yeah, definitely. So you probably do this naturally in your own business or department. I imagine that some of you probably even have like annual planning meetings where you review the performance of your team and you set goals or to make changes or to improve the delivery of your services or goods to your clients. And so naturally, just because we like to see things improve in our areas of influence, we iterate and we loop on things. So whether that's annually, or maybe you have a monthly meeting with the team, or a weekly meeting, or even a daily stand-up, right? Those are all principles of looping something, where you want to keep moving something forward. Now, in the human world, that often takes days, weeks, months, years. When we talk about an agent, because they can iterate so quickly on their work, looping can happen very, very fast, and improvement can happen very, very quickly. But it has to be built. So whenever you create an agent workflow, if you're only thinking in terms of right here and now, you're potentially missing out on future improvement. And so the agents should be built with loops in mind, so that they can learn, so that they can improve, and eventually get better and better at whatever the task is at hand. And that even gets really big when you think about systemically as your company, right? If we think about one workflow, that's great, but think about if everything in your organization, all the processes went through this sort of loop, and it would really be a competitive advantage in the future. Hopefully that answers that, Jason.
Yeah, that's great. It's certainly, it's one of those concepts that it's maybe easy to understand conceptually, but it's then how do you implement it? And we can talk more about that as well if it comes up. But all right, so as we talk about these AI agents and how the kind of the formula around that, let's compare kind of a side-by-side stark contrast of what maybe some of us are used to with more like a chat style versus an AI agent. Here's a good example. So the chat AI would be, you're using AI to say, write an email follow-up for this prospect. So you initiate the prompt, you ask it, it answers, you take it, the response, and then you paste it into an email client and you send that email. Versus an AI agent, this will help define it. So the prompt is every morning, review new leads, research each company, identify the best prospects, then draft the personalized follow-ups. You can read this and kind of see the flow here. Update the CRM, flag it, all these other things. So what you're just not saying, hey, here's something that I need. You're actually defining a goal, an outcome, and then it figures out the best workflow for that, right? So you're giving it, think of it like an employee to say, hey, write an email for this client versus, hey, every morning I need you to do this task. You own this task. I need you to do it. And so that's the difference here is, we're not needing to prompt this agent regularly. It just knows what it's supposed to do. It has a job and it's going to go and do it. So this is one of those, let me pause here because I call them aha moments in AI. One was when I started chatting with AI and just doing normal chats, and it started bringing back really relevant and good, thoroughly thought research. And I was like, this is great. This can really solve my problems. Another aha moment is when I started looking at AI agents and I realized that you can schedule an agent to work autonomously. And it was just like, this is fantastic. I can do this and this will save me so much time. And I quickly realized, all right, when you give an agent the ability to do a task, you really need to define that outcome because yeah, let's go to the next slide, Paul, because it's building this and giving it the things and the responsibilities that it needs is so important. I think I saw a question come through and I just kind of glanced at it, and I think we're going to answer that question in a future slide. So just stay tuned for that. But so here, we're going to go from the inside out on these circles from the core to the process to the responsibilities. And so most organizations we find are comfortable at the task level, like give it a task and return the results. And the organization challenges that maybe that solves, right?
And I will say that this takes things from managing your work with agent assisted output to, once you get to the bigger circle, as you start to mature in this, it turns it into managing agents, right? And there's a difference between managing my own work with agent assistance versus managing an agent. And truly I see in the future that will be some people's sole responsibility, will be to just watch the herd of agents do their work and ensure that there is good quality, to iterate on that loop to help correct the loop where needed so that it cannot make the same mistake again. And so it's very much like a manager, but it's not dealing with people that are asking for PTO, right? This is dealing with agents that will do exactly what you tell them to do, and they're very persistent about achieving whatever the goal is that you give them. And so they just need guidance from a human at times.
Yeah, I think the next maybe question that comes from this as we talk about agents is, well, how do agents know our process? Like, how do they know our way? Because anybody can, and we can go to the next slide on this one, but I think anybody can go out and get a subscription to any of the models that are out there. And think that they're on the same level playing field as everybody else. What you can't rent and go and get a subscription for is your business processes and the IP that you've built over time. And so how does an agent know your processes and your way of doing things? Well, this is where we introduce agent skills. Think of skills as a way of teaching your agent your particular processes. A good way to demonstrate this is when you hire a new employee, you don't just set them down at a desk and say, go. There's a process that you go through to train your new employees. And you probably have, how many of you have an SOP manual or something like that that says, here's how we do things at our company. Think of an agent skill as those standard operating procedures that you've built and designed, and you are going to build these skills. So there's a way that we can build these and have them and feed them to these agents so that when an agent needs to perform a task, it can reference those skills and do it your way, right? So you can choose exactly, hey, here's how we do things. When we engage with a customer, here's the tone of voice, here's the things, here's where we need to create this report in this file, and it needs to be done this way. So all of that process needs to be fed into an agent, and we do that via skills. So when we capture those skills.
I was going to say, the other thing a skill does, and you kind of already implied this, but a part of a skill is also giving it what really good looks like. And so when you create a skill, there is a folder even dedicated to this for that skill that shows, and here are examples of good work. And then you provide to them previous iterations that you have personally developed, your team has done. And so when the agent is working on whatever task, it knows that, oh, here's what they deem as good work. There's a model that it can follow, and then the output will be nearly identical to the previous model minus whatever loops and iterations you've told it to improve on.
Yeah, the other great advantage of a skill is that if you have humans in the loop, and humans come with a lot of background from other jobs and other education backgrounds and things like that. So you say, here's our way of doing things. They read it, and then they kind of figure out their own way of doing things. And maybe it's not 100% aligned with, and maybe even across, let's say, a customer service department, you have 5 agents that maybe do things differently. Whereas with a skill, you set 100% what our best practice is, and here's how we do it. Every agent is going to follow that 100% of the time, right? So we can dictate that and say this has to be done this way, or else don't do it, right? So having that compliance around your processes and procedures is fantastic. All right. So let's talk about some scenarios where AI agents are used. This is where we see they're used the most so far, but really, think of in your organization today where you could use an AI agent. We see a lot in the sales and marketing side of things, doing research, generating leads and qualifying leads, updating CRM records and doing follow-up, even follow-up outreach. I've seen people that have AI agents have that first line of communication with their customers or prospects. On the marketing side, generating content, campaigns, I mentioned social media, blog posts, things like that. And just being able to have an agent continually work on that and say, hey, every week at Monday morning, I want to come in and I want to see 5 new blog articles that we're going to publish in this next 2 weeks. Queue them up for approval. And then I'll, once I give you the thumbs up, you can go ahead and stage them and post them on our schedule, something like that. On the operations side, generating reports, you can think on the financial side, reconciliations and other things like that. On the customer service side of things, triaging, doing dispatching, communication, drafting, things like that. And then on the management side, meeting prep and other, again, reporting, analysis. It actually does a really good job. AI and bots can do a really good job on analysis. You feed it the information and data, or say, go out and get the information, you link it with your systems, and then generate the reports that we need. It's a huge time saver for management and leadership. Any other things you want to inject there?
I mean, just wherever you see like repeatable things is what I think. Just anything that can be repeated, an agent is a great candidate for that.
Yeah. I always recommend don't take your most critical or most important process and try to make that your first attempt at an AI agent. I think you want to start on a smaller thing. Maybe find the most painful. That's maybe the easiest, the most mundane or the most painful that you say, like, man, all of our employees hate doing this thing and it's just because it's so tedious or what have you. That might be a good thing to start on. If it's a critical process to the company, I'm not saying that's not a good use case for an AI agent, but I wouldn't start there. Just some advice there. All right. All right, so we want to talk about this idea of, we really kind of see two kinds of agents that used in business today. So an employee agent and then a general business agent. And these are interesting concepts because we're seeing adoption and traction on a lot of these. So an employee agent, think of this as a personal agent that each employee has. It's like a personal assistant for every single employee. You would give this employee agent access to whatever that employee has. So maybe you give it access to your email as an employee, or your whatever documents you have access to within the company. You give it access to whatever other systems that you may have access to. And then you use that agent to help further and enhance your capabilities as an employee, right? So it's to help you augment your job in what you're doing, your tasks. Typically, you would be the only one that would interact with this employee agent, directly. And the good, I guess the good point to make about this is that you would be responsible for your agent. Each employee is responsible for their own agent, including the output that and the work that they do. So how you prompt it, matters, right? Versus a general business agent. Now think of this as an agent that is tied into business systems. And the key difference is that it's not just a one-to-one relationship. Any employee or maybe department or function would have access to this agent. So you could have maybe an entire sales team or marketing team, or the entire customer success team would have access to this agent that they could all ask tasks of or get information from, right? Thoughts around that?
Well, I think I just want to show things.
Yeah, I think we want to show both of these in action. So Brian's got a couple demos that we want to actually show what an agent looks like, how you would interact with an agent. What does that look like, and the different methods around that, and then maybe some of its capabilities.
All right, can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
Okay, so the first thing, so what I pulled up here is this is our company's internal chat. We use a product called Rocket Chat, but this could be Teams, this could be Slack, whatever your team uses to communicate and collaborate. Now, I've hidden all of our channels because we've got tons of channels and I shouldn't be sharing all those with the world. So I've kind of collapsed all of that, but just think of this as a chat. And here I have my personal agent, Penny. So if you've ever seen Inspector Gadget, you know about Penny and what she does for her Uncle Gadget. And so this here is my agent. And so it's tied into my workflow, my tools. And so let me just give an example or two of some things that I can do. For example, I'm just going to ask it here to look at my unread email from today, summarize what's there. And I'm telling it to obfuscate all of the names, because obviously I'm sharing my screen, and so I don't want that stuff to be visible publicly. So what's going to happen is in the background, Penny is going to go and look at my inbox and do exactly that very thing. Now, that's one of the, while it's working here, that's one of the great things about agents is that they do have access to systems. And it's probably one of the most difficult challenges that we are facing right now in AI engineering is how do we do that securely so that when we give our company data to an agent, that things aren't going to go off the rails. And so it's something that we're constantly working on here at Advanced Data, but not only here at Advanced Data, all over the world, people are solving this problem every day. And we're starting to see new frameworks bubble up that will do exactly that sort of thing. It'll keep things secure. So, and I realize that this is, I kind of have the verbosity of Penny's output turned up pretty high. So I'm seeing like some of the work under the hood of what Penny's actually doing. So that can be turned up or down. But ultimately the end result here is, okay, good. So I now have a summary of my email, and I have some urgent issues that it looks like I need to follow up on. I have some security incidents that I need to follow up on. So this is good. This is very this is human triggered. So I could even take this a step further and say, thanks, can you give me a summary like this without the obfuscation every morning at 8 a.m.? Right, so now I'm asking Penny to do something on a trigger, and Penny's going to take that and turn that into a job and then give me the same results every morning. So that would be an example. So this is good because it touches my my personal data, but also I use this to get actual work done. So for example, I could say, and so within my work in IT, I do a lot of work on firewalls. And so sometimes somebody will come to me and say, hey, I can't get to this website. Can you investigate it? Right, a networking thing that I need to look at. Well, Penny has read access to a firewall. And so I can ask it to say, hey, can you investigate this? Investigate why we can't reach, and I'm just going to put, now I know why I can't reach this, but I'm going to just ask Penny about this. I was going to wait to see if the previous job will finish. If not, it's okay. I'm going to interrupt. So what's going to happen next under the hood is that Penny's going to go look at the firewall and investigate the configuration to understand, well, why can't we see that? And we can see that it's being redirected. And it will then go and look at the actual firewall data. It will look at the logs, and it will determine why that can't be reached. Now, spoiler alert, it's because we have geo blocking on the firewall. And so we can see that this is an Indian website, and that's just not one of the countries that's on our trust list for our staff to visit. And so if I was to let it sit here and churn, this would take a little bit longer because it's actually doing a lot of work in the background, but it would free me up that I could give this task to Penny, and then I can turn and go do something else and then come back probably 5 or 10 minutes later, and it will have the answer for me. So that's the example that I'll share right now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I've got some more things to share in a little bit, but hopefully that's useful. And Jason, any questions about what I just did there?
No, yeah, I think the big part is being able to then schedule. You know, we're all familiar with chatting with AI and getting results, but then saying, hey, do this every day or do this every week, or reach out to these other systems that maybe our internal systems that normal AI would not have access to, and yeah, giving you either the capabilities to do work or just the information that's needed. So yeah, very powerful once you start thinking about what these agents can start to do. Okay. So as Brian kind of talked about this a bit earlier, but maybe the management model changes a little bit. We're going from managing employees and people to managing agents. And here's one of the things that maybe was part of that question earlier, is like, unlike an employee, an agent operates at machine speeds and scale. A mistake doesn't happen once, it can happen 1,000 times before anybody notices. And so this is why the controls, processes, governance, and having the boundaries up front is super, super important. Oftentimes, if this is done with a person, either they're going to use their intuition or logic, or you're going to be able to catch those mistakes before they get out of hand. Whereas with an agent, you potentially could cause a lot of damage if you don't have it done right. And so, how do you prevent that, and how do you handle that? Well, I think we're not the only ones thinking this. If we go to the next slide, we can see recently there was a survey that was done across 800 plus developers and decision makers in business. And they said, you can read the statistics here, but 95% of the organizations are already treating agents as a priority. So businesses realize, hey, we need to be agentic in our AI usage. But what's stopping them? Why is it stalling? Almost 100% of organizations are moving that direction, but anywhere from 40 to 45% are stalled because they're worried about security. And as they should be, as they rightfully should be, right? And so it compounds at every layer. So infrastructure teams and other teams need to realize, how do we sandbox and isolate and govern these agents so that, one, they only have access to the things that they need, and they're not going to breach information or data or other things. Make sure it's ready for business.
And I will add too that I think in our imaginations, we like to think of AI going rogue as like Skynet, right? The Terminator movies where AI goes bad and destroys humanity. But in reality, AI is simply task driven and very persistent. And so when you give it a task, it will do whatever it takes to accomplish the task. And so it's that persistence that needs to be properly bridled. And so that's a big part of this is how do you say, hey, do this thing, but do it within boundaries that we give you? Because if you pay attention to the news, you'll recall a couple weeks ago that OpenAI announced that one of its models escaped its sandbox and proceeded to hack another company because the AI thought that the quickest way to get its answers and accomplish its task was to get into the database of this other company, right? And so once it did that, it came back and said, here's your answer. And so that's a great example of, it wasn't trying to hack the NSA. It wasn't trying to obtain nuclear codes, right, and cause Armageddon. No, it was simply trying to do the task it was given. And it left the boundaries that were safe to do that. Now, of course, that's an extreme example. OpenAI was like purposely testing a super intelligent model that hasn't been released to the public. But I think that's just worth highlighting here.
Yeah. So let's talk about governance in maybe more plain English as we go to the next slide, and because this is on everybody's mind, I think. So just as we wouldn't maybe give all of our secrets and keys and passwords to the intern, we also wouldn't do the same with an AI agent, right? So here on the left-hand side, we have 5 questions that every leader or everybody who's implementing AI agents needs to answer first. If you can't answer these, don't implement an agent. So the data question, what data does the agent have access to? The permissions question, with what can it do with that data? The approval loop, and this is talked about a lot in a lot of conferences and other AI circles, but it's like keeping humans in the loop. So it's not fully autonomous. There needs to be some interaction, and especially on an approval loop. So what approvals are needed? What tasks require approval from somebody? Auditing capabilities. Can we see and audit what the agent has done? And then the accountability. Who owns the outcome? It's funny, I saw a humorous video. I think it was humorous. It was a driver driving a Tesla who was pulled over by a police officer, and he was sitting in the driver's seat. And his argument to the police officer was, I'm sitting here, but I wasn't driving. It's driving autonomously, so I don't deserve a ticket. And the funny interaction between the police officer and this passenger, we'll call him. And I think you probably know what happened, but ultimately that driver was issued a ticket, and the the point was, hey, just because it's autonomously driving, you are still the driver. You're responsible. So yeah, that accountability is so important still. Yeah.
Hey, Brian and Jason, I have a quick question.
Yep.
Because you just mentioned, Brian, you gave this great example of that recent example where the agent had hacked into the system. Have you observed any instances of an agent not following permissions that were explicitly given or boundaries that were directly set?
I actually quite the opposite. I find that the agents that when I work with them, they are usually more careful than a human would be, which is what once I started to recognize that pattern, it really opened my mind to the power behind them. Yeah, the harnesses are really good now at making sure that things are done in a safe way. And so I can just a really quick example. I was using an agent to help me on an IT project, and in the course of using that agent, it was doing things that only the very best engineers would do after many years of having experience under their belt, where it was creating a rollback plan. It was backing up all of the data on every step to make sure that it could back out if something went wrong. And I find that even the very good engineers, they're not that careful. And they have to be trained to say, hey, here is the best way, the ideal way to do a project, because chaos can happen. And so to prevent fallout from chaos, we do these things. The agents are very careful about the work that they do, and that's been impressive to me.
And I would also mention that if we find that an agent is not explicitly following your rules or permission sets, we may want to enhance those permission sets, because they may not be descriptive enough to provide clarity to the agent. Because I think they want to follow the rules. They really do. And so you just have to give them the rules to follow. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, we have.
Right,
so
demo time.
Yeah, we wanted to do a demo of what business kind of level agent. I think there was a question maybe before we jumped in that says, can you explain hallucinations when agents are so careful? I noticed that I catch them in answers on my chats, and when I point it out, they apologize. So we talk about, sometimes an agent will go down a path, and then you may, having deep industry knowledge, say, well, have you thought about it this way, or maybe you're doing that wrong, do it this way, and then they kind of change course.
Yeah, I'll say from my experience, the rate of hallucinations has plummeted to almost zero for me. If you were to ask me a year ago, I would say I probably see it 10% of the time. 2 years ago, I probably saw it 30% of the time. Like it is really, really good now. So to me, that has become something that's very infrequent. But there will be from time to time, just occasionally, where I will need to insert human knowledge to improve something that it's working on. So that's been my experience. I don't know if y'all are having any other experience different than that.
Well, we can save, if there's any more questions around that, we can save them at the Q&A at the end, but yeah. All right, let's take a look at a business agent, maybe one that is maybe common amongst a group of employees or in a company, and how that might look.
Okay, can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
So while we were talking, by the way, it did find that, the reason behind why we can't get into that website, and it was spot on. It knew, it was able to detect what was going on there. So I just wanted to show that. I'm going to jump over here. All right, let's see if I can. All right, we'll do it like that. So here is a group chat, and I've just engaged with our general agent, and you'll see that I just mention it in the group chat, just like you would mention a human in Slack or in Teams. I can just mention it and I get its attention. And so in this case, I am going to ask it to get us a summary of data. I'm going to paste this. I didn't want to type all of this out, but here I'm just saying, give me a summary. That's actually, I pasted the wrong thing. Sorry about that. Let's ConnectWise tickets. Okay, so what I'm asking it to do here is to look into our ticketing system and to give me a summary of information that's in there. Now I'm in my chat, right? This has nothing to do with our ticketing system, but Data, the agent, has access to it. And so, and I've also told it to, again, just hide all company names so that I can share this. And so now in chat, I can engage with this, and other team members can participate in the same chat with me. And it's going to go out and do things. Now I can see it's checking ConnectWise, so it has a skill. We talked about skills earlier. It has a skill that's been given to it for using ConnectWise, and so then it knows how to do that. All right, so now it's gone out and it can look at our tickets, and it's going to start to summarize them based on what I've asked. Okay, so I'm going to even take this a step further and say, great, but break it down by looking into the ticket titles and the summaries. And then it can go and do that. So again, this is more of aggregation, but again, this is human initiated. Now I do have some more agent loops that I can't really show on the screen here because they contain client information, but I'll talk about that in just a second here. Let's just make sure that this finishes up. There we go. So it's gone through and it has given me further summaries and then given me links that I can actually click right into the tickets themselves. And so again, as a team, if we're talking about something in a channel, any of us can mention Data and say, hey, what's your input on this thing? And it has skills into our tools. And so it can look at different things and then give us actionable data right there in the chat, which is really, really powerful. Okay, so talking about now some of the other things, I'm going to stop sharing my screen because again, I can't share these, but we have one example where whenever a customer's firewall goes down, we have an agent that's waiting to watch to see, do I lose a heartbeat to a device? And if I do lose a heartbeat, then I can do a very quick analysis to understand, is it the ISP, right, the internet provider? Does it have something to do with maybe like the firewall itself, the configuration? Was it a power event? And then what it will do is it will alert us in a channel in our chat that, hey, customer ABC just went down. And so we see it where we work. And that's what's just really amazing about this. Another good example is whenever a customer is having some sort of severe incident in a ticket where something isn't going right, that we don't want to wait until things blow up before those things get escalated, right? And so we have an agent watching the conversation on a ticket, and then it will alert us, again, in chat, right where we work, that, hey, somebody needs to look at this ticket because something isn't going right with whatever the problem is. And so that way we can get ahead of the issue before it turns into a severe thing. So those are really good examples of ways that we're using agents now at Advanced Data just to help us deliver better service.
Yeah, and I think a good exercise is to now start thinking about in your business, where is a prime or a ripe spot for an AI agent to be implemented in your business. I think we've got maybe one or two more slides to kind of look at.
Okay. Jason, I think to your point, I think the opportunity, it's worth mentioning to all of our attendees, is that what we're really talking about is really the third step on an AI roadmap, right? So once we have done an evaluation of given environment and provided some education and some best practices on how to use AI, what to do, what not to do. You know, if anybody's on this call and feeling, my goodness, I'm not using this even close to an agentic model, you wouldn't be alone. And that's because this is a pretty mature application. It's something that takes a lot of careful development, and it's something that is really probably a good idea to get some help from experts and to help do that safely. Brian, what would you give, Brian and Jason, what context or recommendations would you give to a partner or somebody who wanted to use agentic AI inside their organization?
That's a loaded question, Paul. There's a lot of thoughts I have about that, and we're already over time. I would just say this is let's engage in conversation. Like when we need to have future, we'll continue to have more webinars about this, but let's start a conversation, because this is a hard problem, but wow, it's really, really powerful. And so we would love to talk about your own individual business needs and to see where agents could really help you take off. Now, Paul, I see up here on the slide, you have AI Pal. AI Pal is Advanced Data's platform for delivering these things, and it has many different tiers. It's not just one thing. There's a chat interface. There is the ability to tie into your own tools. There's the ability to have agents that will do things and watch things. So there's a lot of different layers to this. But I think we just need to, I would say, let's have conversations.
Awesome. Well, to that end, we'd love to invite anybody, and we'd like to take some time now to answer any questions that the group might have. But to facilitate those conversations, we invite all of our partners, all of our visitors and guests and new friends to start that conversation by scheduling some time with us. There's no obligation, no pressure. We love talking about AI. It's our favorite thing to do. And so if anybody would like to have that conversation with us, simply use this QR code and schedule some time on our calendar.
And I'll also take this opportunity to plug our classes that we do. We have classes where we will host a meal here at our office, and people can come in and we will present some concepts, but then we will take time to sit down with you to take a look at what your AI initiatives are and help you connect the dots. And those don't have any obligation. So if anybody's interested in attending one of those classes, contact us and we'll let you know what the schedule looks like.
Yes, excellent. Does anybody have any questions for the experts? Thank you, Stephanie. Our friend Stephanie from American Backcountry recommends the classes. It was fun having you in the office, Steph. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate your time. We look forward to having the next conversation with each of you, whether that be at one of our classes or whether that be in a one-on-one environment. Please do take some time to schedule time with us. We look forward to that interaction, and we look forward to seeing you elsewhere. Thank you so much for being here and for your time today.
Yeah, thanks everyone.